You know what's so interesting about the ADHD and this idea of hyperfocus? You're using that term, and I think for a lot of listeners, maybe they don't understand, but it's actually a technical term when it comes to people with ADHD. So the thing with us is that it's not that we can't focus; it's that we can't always control where we're focused. And so if we're not interested in a thing, if we're not curious about it, if we're not engaged with it, it's game over. We can't focus on it. But if it's something that sparks our soul with some kind of interest, then we go into what's known as a hyper focused state. And this is unique to people with ADHD. It's a lot like the flow state that what's his name, 𝗖𝗽𝗓 talks about in his book, Flow. And it's this heightened state where time kind of slows down, you lose sense of time altogether, and the world just disappears. And for me, was really interesting, to go back to my very early days as a kid. I was put on Ritalin from when I was 6 until I was 16. And that drug had a very unique effect on me in that it forced me into a hyper focused state, but it also sapped me of all my physical energy. So I was kind of like trapped constantly inside my brain. I didn't have this power over my body anymore. And I was just focused on whatever was in front of me. And so when I finally got off that drug, I was like, I'm never doing that again, because I didn't like this sense of feeling trapped. But the problem was, from that point on, I was 16 and I didn't have any systems or processes around me to help me function in the world. And so that's why, for the next 5 or 6 years in college and work, I really struggled. I got fired a lot. I was a bad student. And it's because I just couldn't show up and be accountable and be present. I hadn't figured out how to unlock that for myself. And so I studied psychology. I studied a lot of the habits of people who had accomplished things that I wanted to accomplish. Like you mentioned Richard Branson, like what were the habits and the rituals that those guys and gals deployed so that they could achieve these things. So I started learning those bits and pieces, taking them, and most of what I learned, like 99% of it didn't work for me, but every now and then I'd get a little success, and I would take that and I'd put it into like my reservoir of like tips and tricks. And after a certain point, I had so many that suddenly I had this control over my life, and I had figured out how to harness this hyper focus and use it as a strength rather than letting it use me as a weakness. And so all those things that I learned that helped me get control of my life, they were actually the same things that help you build a business, surprisingly. And so that's why I found like this interesting niche in that way. But to your point, like real estate and syndication, it's such an engaging thing once you understand how it works. And there's so many different places that you can play. And so I'm not a spreadsheet guy. My partner, Dan, he loves spreadsheets. If I had to do spreadsheets all day long, I'd probably not be a very happy camper. But I don't have to focus on that, right? I can have my partner do that, and I can focus on the aspects that I do like, which is talking to people or working on, operations on the actual
Being
property
creative.
level. Like,
Being
yeah, more
creative.
creative things.
Yep.
Exactly. So it's all about taking those things that we perceive as weaknesses in ourselves and figuring out how can we leverage them and turn them into strengths, I think.
Beautifully said.
That's
Well
really
said.
special.